We can do cats.
Have you ever heard of the John Birch Society? It is one of the biggest influences that propelled the far right into mainstream American politics. In fact, most of the Republican Party's craziest conspiracies
Palestinian friend of the show, cat.
Started with the John Birch
Media Matters, cat.
Society. The War on Christmas, John Birch Society. Shadowy cabal running our government, John Birch Society. Orchestrated panic over school boards, John Birch Society. You could make an entire season of television about the influence of the John Birchers and still not even scratch the surface. But I think it's important to point out how Bircher conspiracies and tactics persist to this day, upholding the entire right-wing media ecosystem. Neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes said this yesterday about the John Birch Society.
And they're talking about the John Birch Society, which is sort of the prelude to the Groypers.
Bircher influence is ubiquitous in conservative media. You can find it in everything from radio to blogs. Alex Jones was raised on Bircher literature. Even though the corporate founders are long dead, the John Birch Society message lives on, being broadcast almost verbatim into millions of homes every single day on Fox News, the most watched cable news channel in the country. Now, the John Birch Society was founded in 1958 by candy magnate Robert Welch. A rabid anti-communist, Welch proposed a secret meeting in Indianapolis, all very cloak and dagger, to 17 business colleagues. 11 of them showed up, making for a total of 12 founders. Fun fact, one of those men was Fred Koch, the father of the Koch brothers. Welch spent 2 days with them, detailing a mass communist plot stenched in the stink of the New Deal and global cooperation. Over his lifetime, Welch would be known for his paranoia about this secret communist cabal. He accused tons of high-ranking American officials of being a part of it, including Dwight Eisenhower, the President of the United States. Dwight Eisenhower, the guy who helped Allied forces win World War II. Dwight Eisenhower, the guy who has a doctrine against communism with his name on it. Now, a lot of Republicans at the time recognized the John Birch Society as deranged and toxic, but that didn't really matter. Because the John Birch Society...
Because they got fucking money, dog. That's it. Because in the way that our current economic organization of society works, if you got enough moneyed up motherfuckers out there with unhinged, insane ideas, they can keep that shit afloat permanently. Plus, it's also anti-communist, so it technically does still align with American capitalist interests.
Was so good.
It's basically extreme in the right direction, which is a double entendre.
Good at getting its message out. So good, in fact, that it persists to this day. So let's talk about the conspiracy that propelled them into the public eye, that Dwight Eisenhower was a communist. This is just patently untrue. Like, I can't think of a less true thing to say. But that didn't stop the Birchers, because who cares about facts? The most devoted of them committed themselves to the idea, even though mainstream politicians and media outlets either denounced or ignored them. That was in the late 60s. And now you can find this crap on the most watched cable news channel in the country. Here's Fox News talking about the President of the United States, Joseph Biden, in 2021.
In a set of prepared remarks, this wasn't off the cuff, better suited for a despotic socialist dictator, frankly.
And 2022.
Joe Biden's Justice Department is imprisoning people for having the wrong thoughts.
And 2023.
When Joe Biden likens you to Al-Qaeda or the Klan, it's not a small thing at all. It has implications.
It's not even controversial to say that the president wants to cause the downfall of America. That's just an average Tuesday for us now. And of course, it wasn't just Eisenhower. John F. Kennedy was in on it too. Check out this pamphlet Birchers handed out before JFK visited Dallas. Yeah, the trip where he was assassinated. The flyer insisted that the president was guilty of treason, and some of his crimes sound oddly familiar. Betraying the Constitution.
Joe, before you rip up that document called the Constitution,
supporting communist racial riots.
Antifa, Black Lives Matter, 500 riots over the last 3 years. Defund the police. That's not America. That's chaos. And that's exactly what Joe Biden is doing.
Lying about his love life.
The Biden's affection is totally real. It's in no way part of a slick PR campaign devised by cynical consultants determined to hide the president's senility by misdirection. Not at all. Their love is as real as climate change.
Now, Welch and the Birchers' definition of communism was pretty broad, applying it to anything that didn't fit their warped perspective. But accusing the President of the United States of being some dirty commie globalist, that's nuts. I know I have to remind you, but like that's actually nuts, and that's just normal now. That's nuts. Most Republicans thought so too, or at least they didn't publicly agree. Being associated with conspiracy theories like this was a negative back then. But Birchers pushed that narrative so persistently for so long that we don't even blink. And when it comes to rhetoric surrounding schools, the John Birch Society and Fox News are nearly indistinguishable. Even before he founded the society, Robert Welch was saying that parents had a right to stand up against teachers indoctrinating their students with socialism. Where have I heard that before?
We have been under a multi-generational, very patient, very potent indoctrination program by the left.
Birchers also considered sex education a communist plot.
So we talk about the problem where it started with sex ed, gender theory. We get into unions and...
They're just fucking Nazis, chat. The short and sweet of it is they're Nazis. They believe all of the same things that the Nazis believe, from anti-communism all the way to moral degeneracy. And not only that, but also a whole litany of different like psychopathic conspiracy theories beyond like the regular fascist shit.
And the education mafia.
And often complain that textbooks weren't patriotic enough.
The U.S. is losing its grip on its superpower status, in part.
And now their discourse dominates mainstream political opinion, for the record.
Because of the wokeification of our military and the destruction of patriotic education in our schools.
These ideas were and are commonplace on the right, but the Birchers brought it into the mainstream. They had so many avenues to enlist new members. Opposition to desegregation, to McCarthyist panic, to the mid-century version of an anti-woke crusade. And because those ideas weren't yet mainstream, the John Birch Society had the idea to encourage its members to join their local PTA or run for school board. This led to controversies that look eerily similar to today. In the 60s, a Montana school district decided to replace Bibles that were in poor condition with new ones. They were trying to figure out disposal, and a local minister said it would be okay to burn them. Of course, it doesn't matter why. The Birchers latched on. The Birchers were so aggressive that the school principal actually contacted one of Montana's senators. The principal was hoping to find more information if there was a Bircher plan because he thought that they were going to use the PTA to infiltrate the school. He was right on that count, but the full plan is so much worse. The Birchers wanted to establish committees to make sure there wasn't any subversive material in textbooks and that the library didn't have any socialist books, by the Birchers' definition, of course. And even though the school board rejected these anti-education campaigns, the Birchers still pretty much got their way. They stalked the district superintendent, making menacing calls and trashing his house until he eventually resigned. Within just a few years, the district lost 16 of its 23 teachers, about 70% of K-12 educators. And of course, the LGBTQ community wasn't safe from the John Birchers either. Regular Birch Society lecturer Tim LaHaye sought to ban queer people from teaching in schools. His reason? Family values. You might recognize that line of thinking.
So if there was ever an effort to destroy the nuclear family this obvious, we're not aware of what it might be.
And the list of Bircher conspiracies that continue to this day is seemingly endless. Bircher conspiracies about fluoride mirror current COVID and vaccine denialism.
Vaccines and boosters do not work as they have told us.
In 1970, Birchers handed out a phony communist dossier called Rules for Revolution, trying to scare people about the communist agenda. Here's Fox News on Friday pushing an alleged Antifa riot poster that still hasn't been authenticated.
Have you heard anything about Antifa thus far tonight?
I know there's a flyer circulating in New York City put out by Antifa to bring rocks, to bring pipes, to bring box cutters there. You're showing it right there.
And I mentioned this in a video before, but Robert Welch invented the war on Christmas. He insisted that globalists were trying to replace Christmas decorations with United Nations insignia. And even though it's been over 60 years, the battle is still alive and well.
Last night, the first shots were fired in the war on Christmas in a small town called Dedham, Massachusetts.
Like I said, there are so many parallels and overlaps that it's quite literally impossible to fully cover any part of the John Birch Society's impact in a single video. But I do think it's important to note that they have a tight grip on the most watched cable news channel in the country. You probably have a parent or grandparent or sibling or coworker that regularly watches Fox News, and this is what they are ingesting. John Birch Society conspiracy theories. One of the main sources I use for this video is Birchers by Matthew Dalek. He was kind enough to get me a copy before it comes out in March, It's an incredible book. Dalek makes some great connections between Birchers and Alex Jones, Republican politicians, QAnon, Tucker Carlson. Can't recommend it enough. If you're interested in learning more about the John Birch Society, I will have Dalek's book as well as some other great resources linked on my Twitter. I watch conservatives for...
Anyway, there you go. That's short and sweet. This person did not tell me what the fucking timestamp was for the hasanAbi mentioned in this video, so fuck that person. That's a good introduction in the John Birch Society for those of you who are uninitiated. It is kind of wild to think about how, you know, how insane these people are, and yet how much their rhetoric is a part of mainstream discourse. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because, remember, it doesn't matter as long as it's anti-communist, it's good. That's why you always have to be careful with those pesky anti-communist people who are like, you know, I'm a fucking leftist, I'm a socialist, I'm this, I'm that. I'm a progressive. I'm a real progressive, but I just hate these fucking commies. I hate these tankies. I hate these campists. They aren't pro-America. They're not sufficiently pro-America. The reason why I mention it is because they're not all fucking John Birch Society or anything like that. There is no one singular a group that is responsible for all of this. It's just the motivation, and the energy is there. Anti-communism and hostility towards socialism, trade unions, and whatnot is the exact same kind of hostility the fascists demonstrated. And that is why it is also, in my opinion, another pretty easy way to spot someone with fascist tendencies. Like how you're a socialist? Do you think in the future you will commit to actually addressing things, or will you keep dodging everything with buzzwords like how you're a real socialist? Any drama ever? Says Jumping Jack. What do you mean? What buzzwords? Why is it that anti-intellectualism is so fucking heavily promoted in these supposedly intellectual giant communities that think that debating is like actually the peak? Is the peak of intellectual curiosity. I don't understand it. You literally keep saying buzzwords because you don't understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. It's a way to deflect away by pointing to people that are just as dumb as you are to be like, see, this guy is using fucking big words. You've done nothing but basically, you have done nothing but demonstrate your own personal stupidity, and worse than stupidity, because I'm a fucking idiot too. Your own lack of interest, your own intellectual incuriosity. How will you ever show any opinion of yourself to be right if you can't ever disprove anything? What are you talking about? Just explain what you mean. You don't have to come in here and try to present yourself. You're anti-debate. This is also not true. I do debate regularly, but unfortunately, the reason why I am anti-debate is because people like yourself think that debating is the end-all be-all while simultaneously demonstrating why it is actually incredibly fucking toxic. That's it. Debating is for high schoolers and politicians. It's not designed to understand another viewpoint. It's to win. I know. Disprove an opinion is like an idiotic fucking take overall. You are the reason as to why you and the energy emanating from people in the communities that you are involved with is one of the reasons why debating demonstrably is not a successful way of arriving at the truth. You demonstrate that you are not interested in the truth of a matter, and instead you demonstrate that you are not involved in the truth of any kind of issue whatsoever, and instead just simply are looking for maybe drama or to invoke some kind of like negative reaction. In simpler terms, not only do you fuck up the vibes, sorry, at least other streamers have the, wait, what? Wait, respond to what else I said or you won't, huh? It shows you understand your point, dude. If you actually believe the stuff you say, you could just back it up. How is it idiotic? Wait to respond. Wait, respond to what else I said. Bro, I don't think you understand. I don't think you will. Nobody has ever been convinced of a need of a revolution through debate. Lenin talked about this as a waste of time when it comes to serious political action. No, it's not even like, it's not even that. It's not even that. The point is, when you create an entire community, not on like genuine foundational principles, okay, or leading by empathy, but instead, or caring about a cause specifically because we want a better society, but instead on besting others in the marketplace of ideas, you have a community of incredibly toxic people. I used to think you were smart, but you can't even back up your beliefs to anyone who isn't unknowledgeable. This is hilarious coming from someone who is, as I suspect, a Divorcelli fan. You're saying this because Divorcelli got fucking absolutely destroyed by a person who was infinitely more knowledgeable. Just give me an example and I will address it. But instead of giving me an example, you're just like vaguely gesturing towards certain vibes, because ultimately all it comes from, all this animosity stems from, is that you are a very malleable person. You are unfortunately incredibly easy to influence. And someone else, not me, but someone else has been able to influence you in an opposing direction. And instead of genuinely investigating as to why you have these sorts of opinions, you rely on this other person and their talking points. And not only that, but you take it one step further. You go the extra mile. You go the distance to go and duke it out at the behest of said person. It's a really sad way to exist. That's it. Instead of saying, here are certain things that I disagree with you on, seeing this behavior as tiring. Oh, yeah. Now that you've come in here and broadly gestured at how you don't appreciate the vibes and you can't actually personally moralize it with genuinely, with genuinely firmly held convictions and things that you genuinely disagree with, you're now saying, oh, see, this is tiring. It's just tiring. Okay? That's it. This is the issue with constantly seeking out not real genuine positions and developing an attitude and opinion on the world, but instead just like broadly gesturing at vibes and simply personally being invested in the drama. If you press them too closely, they will abruptly fall silent, loftily indicating by some phrase that the time for argument is past. Jean-Paul Sartre. That was from what's his face? What's the fucking anarchist guy? The bread tube guy? My other messages got deleted. It did not. Who used it? I forget. I don't know. It didn't send then. Innuendo Studios, exactly. Innuendo Studios, like alt-right debate thing. Anyway, you have the opportunity to explain what your major grievance is. You don't have to bring up other debate streamers. You don't have to bring up other content creators. You can be your own person. You can be an adult, okay? I believe in you. So, perhaps for the first time in your life, I ask you, person to person, what is a disagreement that you have that what is a firmly held conviction that you have that is born out of the data where you have found me to be in the wrong? Okay? What is it? Okay, sure, man. I am Cuban and I don't like how you allow the usage of a slur against my people for no kind of reason. This is the best and brightest that Divorcelli's community has to offer. I think we've banned too many sock accounts. Really? That's your gripe. Your major grievance with me is what? You cannot even point to the last time that I have personally said the term that you're looking for is gusano, which means worm in Spanish, a specific phrase for those of you not in the know, a specific phrase used against fascist counter-revolutionaries, specifically in Latin America. It's not just Cuba, okay? It is a term used for reactionary levers. It is identical to Vietnamese people who escaped Vietnam after the North Vietnamese takeover, after America pulled out of Vietnam. It just means you are a fascist collaborator. You are collaborating with the American empire, okay? It's no different than the term scab. This has nothing to do with unchangeable qualities of people's characteristics, and simply everything to do with ideology. And yet, because you came personally from a community where they have led you to believe that this is actually an impossible to fucking, that this is actually just a egregious wrong, the very same community that openly says the N-word, by the way, led by a guy who literally says the N-word. He said it, he tweeted it a couple days back when referencing me. The fact that you are trying to still advance this cause is insane. If you are more upset about an ideological term used not just against Cubans, or definitely not used against all Cubans at all, okay, and simply used against those who are in collaboration with the American government, oftentimes slavers, or oftentimes those who were advocates for the prior dictatorship in Cuba, if you want to talk about Cuba, the Batista dictatorship. That, if you have an issue with that statement, if you have an issue with that, what you call slur, which it is not, it is a pejorative for sure, then ultimately you have to, reckon with all of the, obvious instances of white supremacist racism that's coming from said community. And now you are doing it. You do realize the difference between just saying it and using it in a hateful way. You are now finding yourself defending the N-word, the usage of the N-word. You are saying that the usage of the N-word is appropriate as a white person as long as it is not being directed in a hateful way. Do you understand? Do you actually genuinely believe this? Or is this an issue that you actually adopted because you feel a sense of camaraderie coming from the circles that you exist in online? A question you have to ask yourself. And I hope you do. Remind him D got banned from StarCraft for calling Asians the actual G slur. I mean, that was many years ago. I don't know if he still uses that slur. He does use the N-word, though. I am literally not involved with any community and on any social media. That's really interesting. I don't know why you act like we can't fucking see previous statements that you've made on this chat. Are you that stupid? Why is it that the intellectual giants that come from the Octoberelli community literally are so pathetically fucking one note and so oblivious. Did you really think that we could not figure out exactly what community that you're coming from? You're fighting a battle that no other community would ever fight. You tried to say Gusano is a racial slur that you're using and you're allowing in your community, which I don't, because I do think it's cringe when white people consistently fucking say like, oh, this person's a Gusano, that person's a Gusano. I think it's cringe. That was my position for a very long time, a quite firmly held position that I've had. However, if you are to ask me about the etymology or why certain terms are not harmful and others are, I will of course explain it to you. Except I don't know why we're still having this argument. I don't want to believe that you legitimately, personally think that the N-word, when said by a white person, is not harmful in almost every single context. I'm noticing a pattern with the Divorcelli fans. For some reason, they always pretend to be clueless bypassers speaking out. Yeah, I don't know why. And then they also, another famous Divorcelli debate tactic is to act like you're reading Tom Sawyer. Brother, we're not in fucking 4th grade, okay? Are you in 4th grade? Because you're operating with that mindset. You're operating like a emotionally and mentally stunted child, okay? Oh, what if you were reading the N-word from the dictionary? Is that what you were doing? You can't adopt the supposed principles of being able to say a slur while simultaneously defending an entirely different application of it. Okay? I don't know why you think this is a really good and really solid way to defend your position. Okay? We're not talking about like the etymology of the N-word being discussed in an academic setting. Okay? We're talking about your favorite streamer deploying it consistently, knowing full well that it is not an acceptable thing to say. As evidenced by that very same video where he goes, if you don't keep talking to your microphone, I'm going to say the N-word. That is a pure demonstration that he knows that it is an inappropriate thing to say for a white person, especially in public, and yet he continues to say it. Now, that is an entirely different application of the word than the way you're presenting it in your supposed hypothetical argument.